So, what does a modern religious education actually look like? Today, we're going to crack open a ninth grade Islamic studies textbook to see the moral and ethical framework it lays out. You can think of it as a blueprint for life, one that's designed to build a strong inner core before a young person even steps out to face the world. Now, this textbook doesn't start with some abstract theory. No, it kicks off right here with this incredibly stark, real world horror story from Chicago in 1988. A woman is attacked in public during rush hour, and not a single person helps. This isn't just a story, it's a profound moral challenge thrown right at the reader. And that opening story immediately forces you to ask this question, right? How on earth do you prepare a teenager for moments like that? How do you give them a moral compass that's strong enough to make them act when everyone else is frozen? Well, this textbook's answer to that is exactly what we're going to unpack. So, where does a blueprint like this even begin? Well, interestingly, it's not with a list of rules for the outside world. Nope. The very first step is all about the inner self. It's about cultivating your personal state and your connection to God first. Let's take a look at the concept of prayer. The book talks about khushu, and it explains that this isn't just about, going through the motions. It's about an internal feeling, a deep sense of awe in your heart that then physically shows up on your body as calmness and focus. The whole idea is that your inner state is what truly dictates your outer actions. Okay, next up is this core principle, zakat. Now, a lot of people just translate this as charity, but the textbook really pushes for a much deeper meaning. The root of the word itself actually means two things, purification and growth. So for a student, this totally shifts the focus. It's not just about giving away some money, it's about the profound idea that you are purifying your own character through the act of giving. So you've built this inner foundation. But how does that actually translate to the real world? Well, the next part of the blueprint is all about that, the principles for your everyday life. This is where faith gets tangible, where it becomes conduct. I just love this example. It's so practical. When the textbook talks about being on time, it's not just about punctuality. It's about building a character of absolute rock-solid reliability. The lesson is so simple, but it's really profound. If you say 10 o'clock, you should really mean 9:55. And you can see how this one single idea of trust just branches out into every little corner of life. We're not just talking about big secrets here. It's about having integrity in the small promises you make, like cleaning the garden. It's about professional responsibility, like not wasting time when you're on the clock. The book basically frames trust as this sacred duty to safeguard everything from someone's property to their actual reputation. Okay, so we've got the inner framework and the outer framework established. But how does any of that apply to the craziness of the modern world? The next section dives right into that, zeroing in on things like modesty and the massive challenges that come with mass media. The text is pretty cautious when it comes to modern media. It actually describes the potential negative influences as harmful fruits. The idea here is that what you consume, what you watch, what you listen to, directly feeds your values and can impact your spiritual health. And it gets really specific about where these harmful fruits might come from. It lists a whole range of things, movies, magazines, what it calls immoral dances, that it argues can promote a superficial and damaging worldview. So what's the psychology behind this warning, according to the textbook? It's all about desensitization. The argument is simple. When you see things considered immoral over and over again, whether it's on TV or in a movie, your mind and your heart just get used to it. They stop being shocking, and eventually they just become normal. So what's the core advice here? It's preventative. It's all about being proactive. The book tells students, don't even put yourself in the situation, whether that's a place, a person, or a type of media, where you might be tempted to do something considered shameful. But this blueprint isn't just about personal rules and navigating today's world. The final crucial piece is about grounding the student in this deep, powerful sense of history and intellectual heritage. It's about connecting them to a much, much bigger story. For example, the textbook goes into the fascinating history of how the Quran was compiled. It explains how, after the Prophet's death, all these fragments, written on scraps of wood and parchment, and memorized in, as it says, the breasts of people, were painstakingly gathered together to create the single book that exists today. The book also zooms way out to this broader historical narrative. It makes a really important point. that while Europe was in the Dark Ages, it was the Islamic scholars who were busy translating, preserving, and actually building upon the knowledge of the ancient world. And in doing so, they laid the intellectual groundwork for what would eventually become the European Renaissance.
And this isn't just some vague claim either. The textbook points to very specific contributions. It credits scholars like Ibn al-Nafis with figuring out blood circulation centuries before it was discovered in Europe, and others with being the first to scientifically tell the difference between diseases like measles and smallpox.
And so, there you have it. The blueprint is complete. It moves from that deep cultivation of your inner faith to a practical framework for how you act every single day, to real-world guidance for navigating modern life, and finally it anchors you in this proud legacy of knowledge and history. And that brings us to the final big question. We've seen the incredible, comprehensive vision this textbook lays out for a 14 or 15-year-old. And so the question it kind of leaves us with is this. In a world that is changing faster than ever, what is the role and maybe the relevance of a timeless moral blueprint?